I never imagined I would find myself in such a challenging situation, but life has a way of throwing unexpected curveballs. My name is Emily, and I'm a 30-year-old graphic designer who works from home. I've always loved my job, but nothing could prepare me for the chaos that would unfold when my sister Sarah needed help with her son Liam. Liam just turned 7, and he's always been a bright, energetic kid. But after Sarah's messy divorce from her husband Mark, everything changed. The emotional fallout from that split was overwhelming for everyone involved, especially for Liam. Sarah, who used to be a hands-on mom, became consumed by her own struggles. She started attending self-help seminars and exploring New Age philosophies, leaving Liam to fend for himself more often than not. As I watched my sister drift further away from reality, I felt a growing sense of dread. I had always been close to Liam. He was my little buddy, but now I was about to step into a role I never signed up for, one that would test my patience and resolve in ways I never thought possible. Little did I know, this journey would not only challenge my relationship with Liam, but also force me to confront the very fabric of my family dynamics. The divorce between Sarah and Mark was anything but amicable. It was a drawn-out battle filled with accusations, tears, and heartache. Mark fought hard for custody of Liam, but in the end, he had to move to another state to care for his ailing parents. This left Liam in Sarah's care, and while Mark agreed to pay generous alimony, it didn't change the fact that Liam was now living with a mother who was struggling to keep her own life together. Before the divorce, Liam was just a typical kid. He had his moments of mischief, sure, but nothing out of the ordinary. However, after the split, I noticed a shift in him. Sarah underwent what she called a personal awakening. She became obsessed with self-discovery, attending every seminar she could find, and adopting a strict vegetarian lifestyle. While I admired her quest for growth, I couldn't help but feel that she was neglecting the most important aspect of her life: her son. I remember the first time Sarah left Liam with me for an entire week. It was about 6 months after the divorce, and I was taken aback by how different he had become. "Emily, you work from home. It'll be perfect. He loves spending time with you," she said with that serene smile she had picked up from her meditation groups. But I quickly realized that this was not the same sweet boy I had known. Liam was restless, demanding attention in ways I had never seen before. The first time he threw a tantrum, I was shocked. His face turned red, fists clenched, and he screamed so loudly that I was sure my neighbors thought I was torturing him. I tried everything: hugs, stern words, even bribes with treats. But nothing worked. He just kept screaming until he wore himself out. When Sarah came to pick him up, I tried to talk to her about it, but she brushed me off, insisting that he was just expressing himself. As the months went by, I watched helplessly as Liam's behavior spiraled out of control. Deep down, I knew this wasn't normal. I found myself hovering over my phone, contemplating calling Child Protective Services, but the thought of Liam being taken away from Sarah haunted me. I couldn't bear the idea of him being placed in the system, so I kept my concerns to myself, hoping things would improve. As the weeks turned into months, the situation only worsened. I found myself in a constant state of anxiety whenever Liam was with me. He would come over and I'd brace myself for the inevitable outbursts. It was becoming increasingly difficult to manage my work as a graphic designer while also trying to keep an eye on him. My once peaceful home transformed into a battleground of toys, screams, and chaos. One particularly chaotic day, I was in the middle of an important client call when I heard a loud crash from the other room. My heart sank. I rushed to see what had happened, only to find Liam had knocked over a shelf filled with my art supplies. I could feel my clients on the other end of the line growing impatient as I tried to salvage the situation. "I'm so sorry, just one moment," I said, trying to maintain my professionalism while my heart raced. After that incident, I decided to talk to my parents about what was happening. Surely they would see the changes in Liam and understand my concerns. During one of our Sunday dinners, I brought it up. "Mom, Dad, something is seriously wrong with Liam. He's not just acting out, this is different," I said, my voice rising with frustration. My mom stirred her coffee, giving me that dismissive look I was starting to get used to. "Oh, honey, you're overreacting. Sarah is going through a difficult time right now. These things take time," she replied, waving her hand dismissively. My dad chimed in, "It's just a phase, Emily. You know how kids are. They'll settle down eventually." But I knew this wasn't just a phase. I had witnessed Liam's meltdowns firsthand. One lasted 3 hours. I wanted to scream in frustration. "This isn't the same thing. He's destroying property and hurting people." But it was like talking to a wall. They had made up their minds that this was just a temporary crisis, something that would resolve itself if we just waited long enough. As the chaos continued, I felt increasingly isolated. My life had become a whirlwind of tantrums and stress, and I was losing my grip. I tried to maintain my work, but it was nearly impossible. I had to child-proof my apartment, locking away anything that could be pulled out or climbed on. My once stylish living space now resembled a minimum security prison. Despite my best efforts, Liam's behavior continued to escalate. I remember one day vividly when I lost an entire week's worth of work. I was on a tight deadline for a crucial project, and Liam had been unusually quiet that morning. I should have known better. Quiet was never a good sign. I stepped away for just a couple of minutes to grab a coffee, and when I returned, I found Liam standing there with a pair of scissors. My heart dropped as I looked around and saw my computer cables in pieces on the floor. "Look, Aunt Emily, I made spaghetti," he exclaimed, holding up the mangled wires with a proud grin. I stood there, my coffee cup slipping from my hand, staring at thousands of dollars of damaged equipment and a week's worth of work I couldn't access. When I finally told Sarah about it, her response was infuriating. "Well, you should have been watching him more closely," she said, as if I was the one at fault. I felt defeated. I had tried to be there for Liam, but it was becoming increasingly clear that I couldn't do this alone. The situation with Liam's education was no better. Sarah had decided that traditional schooling would suppress his creative spirit, so she opted to homeschool him. I helped arrange for private teachers to come to my place several times a week, but they all left in frustration after just a few sessions. One teacher, Mrs. Thompson, lasted only 30 minutes before giving up. Another, Mrs. Rodriguez, specialized in working with challenging children and came highly recommended, but even she couldn't handle Liam's outbursts. By the end of summer, I was at my breaking point. The constant stress of managing Liam's behavior while trying to maintain my work and sanity was wearing me down. I knew I had to do something drastic to get my family to see the reality of the situation. Maybe if they witnessed it firsthand, they would finally understand and help me convince Sarah to seek professional. I decided to call my parents and ask them to watch Liam for the weekend. "Mom, Dad, I really need you to help me out. I have an important deadline coming up and I can't manage Liam on my own anymore," I said, trying to sound calm. There was a pause on the line and I could sense the hesitation. "Oh, sweetie, this weekend isn't good. Your father and I have plans," my mom replied, her voice lacking any urgency. "What about next weekend?" I asked, hoping for a better response. "We're probably busy then, too," she said, brushing me off. This became a pattern. Every time I asked for help, they had some excuse. Too busy, not feeling well, or going out of town. It felt like they had suddenly developed the world's most active social life, and I was left to deal with the fallout. Finally, one Wednesday afternoon, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I picked Liam up from one of his failed tutoring sessions and drove straight to my parents' house without warning. I rang the doorbell, but there was no answer. I could see their car in the driveway, and through the window, I caught a glimpse of movement. "Mom! Dad, I know you're in there," I called out, ringing the bell again. 5 minutes passed and still no response. I could hear muffled movements inside, but they just pretended they weren't home. I stood there, feeling like a fool while my own parents hid from their grandson. This happened 3 more times over the next few months, each time with the same result. It became painfully clear that they were choosing to avoid the situation rather than help address it. As Christmas approached, I felt a growing need for a break. My friends had invited me to join them at a mountain cabin for the holidays, a whole week of skiing, hot cocoa, and adult conversation. It sounded like heaven. I told Sarah about my plans in November, making it clear that I wouldn't be available to watch Liam during that week. "I'm going to the mountains with friends," I said firmly. "But you always watch him when I need you to," she protested. "Not this time," I replied, feeling a sense of determination. I had made these plans months ago, and I wasn't changing them. I sent her texts, emails, and even marked it on the shared family calendar. But in the end, she easily agreed, and I should have known better than to trust that easy. Christmas Eve morning started like any other day. I was up early, packing the last few items for my mountain trip, double-checking my list to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything important. My suitcase stood by the door, ready to go. Just as I was about to leave, a sharp knock at my door caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting anyone, except maybe a package I had ordered. Without checking through the peephole, I opened the door, and there stood Liam, backpack on his shoulders, clutching his favorite stuffed dinosaur. Behind him, I caught a glimpse of Sarah's red SUV speeding away, tires crunching on the snow-covered street. I stood there, door still open, cold air rushing in, staring at my phone in disbelief. The fury built up inside me like a pressure cooker about to explode. After all the conversations, all the warnings, and all the clearly stated boundaries, she had still done this. "Aunt Emily," Liam said, pushing past me into the apartment. "I'm hungry." My hands were shaking as I dialed my parents' number. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Linda just dumped Liam at my door and drove off. I'm supposed to be leaving for the mountains today." "Oh dear," she said, not sounding surprised at all. "Well, that's unfortunate timing." "Unfortunate timing? This isn't a coincidence, Mom. I'm bringing him to your house right now." "Ooh, we won't be home, honey. Your father and I are heading out to celebrate Christmas with the Hendersons in Cedar Rapids." Something in her voice sounded off. I had heard her lie before, and I could tell she was avoiding the situation. I pulled my laptop closer and opened Facebook. What I saw made my blood boil. There, posted just an hour ago, was a photo of my mother and Sarah standing in front of a beautifully decorated Christmas tree. My parents' Christmas tree. They were both smiling widely, wearing matching holiday sweaters. I scrolled through the comments, my heart racing. "Can't wait to see everyone tonight," one of my cousins had written. "Save some of those famous Christmas cookies for me," another friend posted. The whole family was going to be there, everyone except me. I stood in my living room, watching Liam cry on the couch. Usually his tears frustrated me, but today they gave me an idea. I looked at my packed suitcase, then at my nephew, and suddenly I knew exactly what I was going to do. "Hey, Liam," I said, keeping my voice casual. "Want to go on an adventure?" The crying stopped instantly. His head popped up, red-rimmed eyes suddenly alert and interested. "What kind of adventure?" he asked, sniffling but clearly intrigued. "A spy mission," I said, lowering my voice conspiratorially. "A super-secret one, but you have to be really quiet. Can you do that?" He nodded eagerly, already slipping into character. "I can be quiet like a mouse." "Perfect," I said, grabbing my suitcase. "Then let's go on a secret mission." We crept up to my parents' house together, the music from inside growing louder as we approached. I parked a little way down the street, out of direct view of the house. My hands were steady as I reached into my purse and pulled out my key ring. I had a key to their house since college for emergencies, and this felt like an emergency of. "Here's what you need to do," I said, handing Liam the wrapped gift box I had originally bought for my parents. "You're going to sneak into the house like a real spy." I paused, considering my next words. Was I really going to use my nephew's behavioral issues as a weapon? But then I remembered all the times they dismissed my concerns and how they conspired to ruin my holiday plans. "You can do whatever you want. The whole house is yours to play in. No rules, no restrictions. Just, like Mummy says, express yourself freely." Liam's face lit up like I had just told him Christmas had come early, which in a way it had. We tiptoed up to the house, and I put my key in the lock, turning it slowly. The door opened without a sound, and I watched Liam tiptoe into the house, his movements exaggerated like a cartoon character. I quietly closed the door behind him and was halfway to my car when I heard the first crash, followed by a chorus of startled screams. By the time I reached the driver's seat, the sounds of chaos were in full swing. Breaking glass, more screams, and over it all, Liam's distinctive high-pitched shriek of unrestrained joy. The mountain cabin was everything I had hoped for. I spent a wonderful week skiing, drinking hot chocolate by the fireplace, and actually relaxing for the first time in months. My phone stayed off the entire time, tucked away in the bottom of my suitcase. When I finally returned home and logged into Facebook, I had several unread messages. The first one was from my cousin Sarah, who had been at my parents' Christmas party. "Emily, I don't even know where to begin," the message started. That Christmas party was insane. As soon as Liam got there, he burst in screaming "Merry Christmas" at the top of his lungs. Before anyone could even react, he dove under the tree and started ripping open presents. Everyone's presents, not just his. I couldn't help but chuckle at the chaos I had unleashed. He was running around the living room like he was possessed, screaming and knocking things over. The beautiful Christmas dinner Aunt Carol spent 2 days preparing ended up all over the floor. The turkey actually slid off the table and landed right on Uncle Bob's new shoes. But that wasn't even the worst part. He started attacking the other kids, pinching them and biting them. Poor little Emma got bitten so hard she had teeth marks on her arm. When the adults tried to stop him, he started grabbing their hair. Aunt Martha lost a whole chunk of her new hair extensions. By the end of her message, I was laughing and cringing at the same time. Everyone agreed, even Grandma, who never says a bad word about anyone, that Sarah needs to wake up and get that child some real help. With a deep breath, I turned my phone back on. It immediately started buzzing with weeks of accumulated notifications, over 100 missed calls, dozens of voicemails, and hundreds of text messages. I started scrolling through them, my heart racing. "How could you do this to us, Mom? You've ruined Christmas. Dad, this is all your fault. Sarah, you've humiliated us in front of the whole family." I waited until I knew Sarah would be home from her latest self-help retreat and called her. She picked up on the first ring. "Listen carefully," I said, before she could start yelling. "I'm only going to say this once. You're going to get Liam professional help, real help, not some online guru or spiritual advisor. You're going to take him to a child psychiatrist and a proper psychologist, and you're going to do it immediately." "You can't tell me what to do with my child," Sarah spluttered. "Actually, I can, because I have evidence. Lots of it. I've installed security cameras in my apartment. I have hours of video showing Liam's episodes. I even have him on video telling the story of how you abandoned him on my doorstep on Christmas Eve and drove away." I could hear her breathing change. "You wouldn't." "I would if you don't get him help. I'll take all of this evidence to Child Protective Services myself, and then we'll see what happens to your custody rights and your alimony payments." After the Christmas incident, I cut off all direct communication with my family. I learned about their lives through other relatives, like pieces of a story I was no longer part of but couldn't help following. 2 weeks after Christmas, I received a message from Sarah. "You won't believe this. Linda actually took Liam to a child psychiatrist, a real one, not some online guru. He's been diagnosed in everything. He's on proper medication now, and he's like a different child." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "Remember Emma? The one he bit at Christmas? They had a play date yesterday. No incidents, no screaming. They just played normally with blocks for 2 hours. More updates trickled in over the following weeks. Liam had started seeing a child psychologist regularly, and his old teacher had agreed to work with him again, reporting steady progress in his ability to focus and interact appropriately. He was making friends and participating in group activities, using words instead of actions to. Sarah had changed too, according to my cousin. No more self-help retreats or personal growth seminars. Instead, she was attending parenting classes and support groups for mothers of children with similar challenges. She even started volunteering at a local children's center, learning more about child development and behavioral therapy. Then, one quiet Sunday afternoon, my phone rang. Mom's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring 3 times while I debated whether to answer. Finally, I picked up. "Emily." Her voice was tentative, different from the angry messages she'd left after Christmas. "I just wanted to let you know about Liam. The therapy is really helping. His doctor says he's responding beautifully to the treatment. Sarah's talking about enrolling him in regular school next year." I felt tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. This was what I had hoped for all along, what I had fought for. But still, I couldn't help wondering about Sarah's motivation. Was she really doing this out of love for Liam, or was she just afraid of losing custody and those alimony checks? I wanted to believe it was love, that somewhere beneath all the self-discovery workshops, she had always loved her son. Maybe she just needed a wake-up call to remember what really mattered. I still don't know if what I did at Christmas was right. Using Liam's challenges as a weapon against those who denied their existence wasn't my proudest moment. But sometimes it takes a shock to break through denial, to force people to face reality. I hope for Liam's sake that these changes last. Most of all, I hope that somewhere in this mess, we've all found a path to becoming a real family again, one that faces its problems together instead of pretending they don't exist.